Do you want an amazing marriage? Are you ready to take your marriage to the next level? Then stick around for Your Marriage Matters podcast with marriage coach Lynn. Let's put some fun and sizzle into your relationship.
Monogamy. Are we kidding ourselves? When people get married, there's an assumption and expectation for monogamy with that partner. Most newlyweds believe that they are immune to affairs and that it could never happen to them. From my research, I've found that well over 85% couples expect lifelong monogamy, but an estimated 70% of married people will breach monogamy at some point in their marriage, whether it is a one-time hookup encounter or longer-lasting extramarital relationship. Today, we will talk about this disconnect. Are we not admitting something here? Is monogamy possible and a worthy goal? I was blessed with a brief friendship with a monogamy expert, author Peggy Vaughn, 9 or 10 years ago, shortly before her death. I highly recommend her book, The Monogamy Myth, a personal handbook for recovering from affairs. Peggy was the founder of Beyond Affairs Network, or BAN, which still helps thousands of people a year. I'll share with you some of what I learned from Peggy in the next 10 minutes. First of all, people think we can rely on attitudes, beliefs, commitment, or religious affiliation as keys to lifelong monogamy. Well, newsflash, people from all categories might find themselves in affairs. There is no immunization or prescription you can take that will assure you from being caught up in an affair situation. There's a discrepancy of what we want and intend versus what we do. The biggest concept I want you to wrap your brain around is controversial, and that is, you can't assume monogamy. It's an ongoing process that takes active work. Peggy Vaughn wrote a book, To Have and to Hold, which gives couples ways to guard against extramarital inclinations. And guess what? It has a lot to do with emotional fidelity and what she refers to as responsible honesty. Responsible honesty means sharing with your partner your intentions, dreams, fantasies, secrets, attractions, feelings, temptations, your inner secret thought world. When you share these things, you are kept accountable and you feel safe in the relationship. When we stray online and take baby steps with someone else, we are not demonstrating responsible honesty. In our culture, there is an emphasis on newness, romance, youth, and excitement. People think an older married couple seated at a restaurant enjoying dinner with little or no conversation equals boredom. Ordinary lifelong love seems boring and doesn't get as much attention in movies or music. Falling in love and falling out of love is intense. The chemicals provide a euphoric rush. We are superficial pleasure seekers who want those dopamine hits. Monogamy is not rewarded. Are we hypocrites? We believe in monogamy, but many people have affairs. We deny, rationalize, get into a cycle, and seem to expect it and accept it. The monogamy myth talks about how our culture sort of gives positive attention to guys talking with their male coworkers about an affair. Among singles, we set ourselves up for breaches of monogamy, with hookups being common, and multiple partners and lack of commitment in relationships. I like to share statistics, but I don't want to get hung up on stats. Here are a few. 1. Up to 70% of men and women would have an affair if they never got caught. I think I mentioned that in 1 or 2 episodes ago, that it's a little higher for men and a little bit lower for women. 2. 40 to 60% of couples in marital counseling have not been monogamous. Emotional affairs that are not yet sexual. Deception is hard to overcome. Both men and women 72% recovered from the sexual activity. So that's good news. I also know of another statistic I don't think I mentioned before, that, and this is good news, that only 30% of couples will divorce because of the affair, so they say. So most couples who have affairs end up staying together. Why do people have affairs? We could sum it up to one of three reasons. And this is from my conversations with Peggy. Push, pull, and society. Number one, push. People feel pushed into an affair because they have problems with personal issues, morals, the relationship, or their adherence to commitment. Pull. There is a fascination, excitement. An affair is something different. It's an ego boost. It's new. It's an antidote to boredom. And three, society. This group is seduced into thinking monogamy can be assumed. There's an opportunity, and they rationalize that it's not so bad. People in this last category are part of the bigger issue and bigger problem when we have a culture filled with people who are prone to going down this slippery slope. You'll find people in this category who there might be excessive alcohol consumed at some party and mistakes are made. So the people in this category sometimes don't intend to find themselves in affair situations. As you can see, an affair is not a choice someone makes because their marriage is lacking. It's about what they want out of life, the choices they make. An individual is looking to another individual to fulfill them. Affairs are one of the most selfish decisions a person can make. This is important because we assume that a bad marriage or a marriage where couples have drifted apart has affairs. The work of Esther Perel, I believe her name is Dr. Esther P-E-R-E-L. You might find her on YouTube. She has some really good talks about affairs and why people have affairs and the intricacies of affairs. Let's talk about discovering an affair. I'll talk a little about this next week, but the best way to deal with an affair is to directly deal with the affair, not the problem with the marriage. Let's talk about discussing the affair. Answer all the questions your spouse has. Tell the incident. Do not immediately react. You want to receive information. Don't use it to retaliate. Keep perspective. Get the facts. Some things can't be answered when you're discussing the affair. You can get to the more global problems within your marriage later, including the faults of each spouse, the problems in your marriage, and how the external environment affects your marriage. When an affair is discovered, there is a reality crisis that hits you between the eyes. Don't immediately react and don't retaliate. 10 to 15% of partners lash out by having an affair after they've discovered an affair. Guard against that. That's not solving anything. It's not making anyone feel better. It's just using people and lowering yourself. Try asking who, what, when, where, and why questions if you've just discovered an affair and you're having a discussion about it. Who, what, when, where, and why. The guilty partner may not be able to articulate what they're thinking, feeling, and you might think that they are rationalizing and hiding. This is why a counselor or marriage coach could help guide the couple to clearer communication. How about the Bottomless Pit Syndrome? You're not a detective pummeling the guilty spouse with hundreds of questions. Don't hold on to the question or need to get details. What did you do with him or her? Were they better sexually than me? If your mind goes in that direction, you'll get angrier and resentment will build in intensity. Your imagination will be your enemy. It's hard to ask the right questions in the right way when discussing the affair. Never have a marathon of asking questions or discussing the issue. Stop if anger or tears start. You want to have short spurts of openness. An affair is overwhelming, and the discussions can also be overwhelming. However, the willingness to answer is important. If it's not dealt with, it won't go away. He or she won't be kind-hearted if you treat him in a child role or tone as you speak. There can be stonewalling or clamming up. There can be a one-up or power imbalance in your discussions after the affair. Think of respect. If you are the victim's spouse, you still need to treat the guilty spouse with respect. Otherwise, you will inflict more damage into the relationship. The spouse will quiet down and avoid being judged by you. I have 2 quotes to share. Quote, "Those who talk very little often don't recover, and often marriage doesn't last. The more they talk, the more likely they are to stay in the marriage." End quote. Monogamy can't be assumed. It must be achieved by a commitment to honesty and an effort to communicate feelings on an ongoing basis. End quote. I've noticed with most couples who are stuck with affairs that the ongoing communication and warmth is not usually there. There was already a type of distance in the marriage, so keep that in consideration. You're looking for honesty, integrity, you're looking for more closeness or warmth in discussing the affair, but lots of times you're just not going to find that. So you can stick to just the basics of what happened and try to start from there. Here's an exercise for couples to try. Check 4 things. 1. Check your honesty level. 2. Keep your relationship vibrant and alive. Do new activities, adventures, experiences to keep your relationship fresh and interesting. Number 3, related to newness is do have healthy surprises, bringing flowers, writing a note, doing unpredictable things for each other. And another thing to check for is, do you feel safe to share everything with your husband or wife? These are some really good beginning steps when recovering from an affair and trying to rebuild your marriage. During the year that I knew Peggy, my conversations with her were very fruitful. Peggy said we have to focus on prevention. The public thinks positive attitudes and beliefs about a committed relationship are enough. That is a starting point. But think about this. Every day for the rest of your life, it's an ongoing action. Honesty, talking, acknowledging attractions are vital. Discuss professional boundaries with coworkers. Continuously work on a satisfying sex life in your marriage. Peggy says you're more at risk if you don't talk about attractions. Honest talk brings you closer. She was the victim of her husband's affairs and says that nothing was worse than not knowing. Responsible honesty is needed between you and your spouse. Monogamy is a choice. You change throughout your life. We talked about the future of monogamy. She noted that neither long-term monogamy nor long-term sexually open relationships are the norms. She says you have to choose your poison and deal with it. She sees serial monogamy as the wave of the future, and that we will still have divorce and remarriage. We will continue to have temporary monogamy. You're monogamous with one partner until you split. Then you try to be monogamous with another partner. Finally, Peggy Vaughn says, be deliberate. Practice what you profess, and be deliberate and flexible. So summing up, I'd like to say that monogamy is assumed, and we think we don't have to put forth effort to ensure a monogamous relationship. But actions tell us otherwise. We have a don't ask, don't tell undercurrent in our culture. After the affair has been discovered, you have 3 choices: to stay and repair, to continue having affairs and live a lie, hoping to not get caught again, or to go your separate ways? Why is it so hard? Aren't we wired for love? Are the sins of the flesh so overpowering? Is monogamy about filling a void, need, or boredom? I hope you will think about these questions, and I hope that you found the answers to today's podcast episode helpful. Until next time, make your marriage great.